Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Mindhunter Season 2, Episode 6. Full spoilers for the episode, of course, as always. And this episode, as we kind of expected, was picking up a little bit on the Atlanta crimes, although not quite until, because they're preparing to go somewhere else, and then it comes on the news, and it's like, Holden gets a sense, he's like, we're needed. The Holden signal has been shot into the sky. We're needed in Atlanta.
To be fair, it is on the TV them admitting, okay, yeah, this is bigger than we thought. We're going to have to do something about this. And he's like, that sounds like an invitation.
Yeah, they still don't want to accept his advice when he gets there, though. It takes a bit of convincing before they even start to go with his thought process. We shouldn't gloss over the opening scene, though, because we have a BTK scene once again. This time, he's in the library still, but he's at the photocopier. And he's making copies of something. And he gets really upset with the guy who works there because he's like, no, I need my...
Yeah, because the machine's broken, so the copy hasn't, is jammed.
Yes. So he gets his original off the top, and he gets the one that was sort of like halfway stuck in out the the output, and it's like, oh, but there's still a second copy stuck in the machine.
I think it was the same copy. It was just ripped in half. He was like, oh, it's fine. Just the guy's like, I'll just leave it. He's like, no, I want the other half. I want the rest of it. I don't want you reading it.
Well, he doesn't say that, but yeah, that's what he's meaning. Yeah, he says it's my property.
Yeah. It's mine. It's personal. It's private.
Yeah, regardless if it's half or the second page, it doesn't really matter. The point is that he doesn't want the guy reading any of it. He doesn't want anything that he had in there being revealed to the world, because it's a paper trail. It's something that can be tracked to him then, to some extent. So it makes a lot of sense. And that's basically it. But it's just another sign of how he's successfully hiding. He's making sure nothing has been left around.
Close one though, because we on the final corner, he does finally get it pulled out, and he snatches it away, presumably before the guy can look at it. And you see it's got the logo on it that that he signs with.
Yeah, the BTK logo.
Yeah.
So. Fun little scene, keeping up with him. A lot of the episode, of course, is still about Brian, Bill and Wendy's son, who is acting more and more like...
Not Wendy's son.
Sorry, not Wendy. Nancy. Sorry. Mixing my names up. The show really changed...
You're thinking of Holden.
The show really changed last episode. With Wendy.
So this is, it's Bill just since you decided Bill and Wendy are Holden's parents.
Yeah.
That's where you've got
my mental process is just stuck to that. Yeah, no, but Bill and Nancy still dealing with Brian, and she's not happy because they've been sent away to Atlanta, and Bill has to go to this retreat thing first to schmooze with the director, the FBI director, but he's been expected to go to Atlanta with Holden once we hit Monday, but of course he's going to come back every Friday and stay for the weekend because he has to make those Friday therapy appointments with his son.
He's coming back Thursday night and going back Monday morning, I assume.
You'd presume so, yeah. So she's not happy to hear about this because he comes home and we find out that Brian's been wet in the bed again, which is something he used to do when he was younger. It's been a few years, three years and something months. She was very specific. She knew exactly how long it had been, did Nancy. But she's bought like disposable sheets just so that if he does it, she can just throw them out. She doesn't have to keep washing, piss stained sheets. And so obviously this is a sign that something's not quite right. We hear that he's playing with his baby toys. He's sucking his thumb when he's sleeping.
Yeah.
We're seeing all these signs that he's kind of regressing, as a younger kid again. And they go to this meeting with the therapist, and he's very friendly with them. He tries to talk to Brian. He's trying to get Brian to open up about the events, and says,
and he's just not saying anything.
He's just kicking the table. Although notably, he does stop kicking the table once he brings up what was happening to the baby. Well, I think it's when he says, did you think the older kids were trying to help the baby? I think it's around then he stops kicking.
He does.
And it's the very next question he starts kicking again when he's asked again.
Yeah.
So very important detail there, I think. And ultimately, once again, Nancy gets very defensive when they're talking without Brian in the room. She gets very defensive and accuses that all this treatment, having to come to therapy, having the social worker in the classroom. She's very upset to find out that there was a visit in the classroom away from her.
And the therapist recommends, some pills to help with the bedwetting.
Yeah, and she's like, "Is this the best idea?" Because she even recommends let him wash his own sheets, like teach him how to do it and make him wash his sheets whenever he does it, so that he's having to deal with the consequences. And she gets very defensive, and Bill's in this really difficult place where Bill, of course, is sympathetic and he's trying to like back up his wife, but he's sitting there going, "No, I think all this is actually necessary. I think this is all important."
Yeah, there's a real telling point where Nancy is just wrong. I think, or, to us, the audience, where
Mm.
she's saying, "Oh, did you ever think it's all this therapy, having to talk to people, all the drugs that's causing him to be like this?" But he wet the bed before anyone found out. That was because last episode she was convinced that was him trying to tell them that something was wrong.
Yeah.
So clearly that's just not the case with what she's saying.
He has a good bit of detective part, but even not that, like even without that, I feel like when she flat out says, kids just get over things. Just let him do what he does, he'll get over it. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like you're trying to make a serial killer. Like,
Yeah, real healthy there.
yeah, that is like it's the ignorance of like, no, if we just pretend that everything's okay, eventually it will be. Like, which is a common human problem that happens with a lot of things.
Yeah, but Bill knows better.
Bill has seen better, or seen worse, I guess, but he's seen enough to know better.
He's seen, yes, enough to know better, and kind of just nods along. It's like, right, okay, we'll get it all done. He volunteers far more information when the therapist asks, anything out of character. He's much more willing to share the truth.
And I think that via working with Holden and actually interviewing these suspects, I feel like he has come to respect a lot of the psychology in a way that he probably didn't before season 1. If this happened before he met Holden, before the events of the first season, I feel like he might not be as understanding. He might be a lot more like Nancy in this scene. If
Probably,
it hadn't been for those
but when
experiences.
he's seen they can, using training and previous experiences, they can map down to an individual. That it makes sense to him now that sure, so on with the training, and can see the pattern here, and understand what the correct treatment is.
And of course, he goes to this retreat. He sort of rushes there. He's kind of a little bit late. Gunn gives him, doesn't give him shit, but he's like, just coming out the last minute here. Don't worry.
Yeah, because Gunn still doesn't know about the kid.
Yeah. And sure enough, they're having drinks, and the director's sitting at the end of the table, and he actually comes up and sits across from Bill once the story starts getting interesting.
Because he starts talking about Manson first, and then he goes on to Kemper, and he starts talking about how he's a big guy and and intimidating.
Yeah.
And the director, or the judge, as he likes to be called.
Yeah. Hands like
strolls up and goes right over to him.
Hands like catcher's mitt, 6'9", so intimidating. We're having pizza with him. We're cutting a slice of pizza as he's telling us how hard it is to cut someone's head off. The decapitation and stuff like that.
And do you know what I love about this scene is people on all the other tables turn around and just start listening. Like, it's not just the people at his table; it's the entire room is captivated.
Yeah. Which again just shows just how interesting this is as a subject. Like, everyone acts like it's taboo, we can't talk about it, but as soon as someone actually starts studying it and has a story to tell, everyone's like got their ears glued to the situation.
Yeah. See the million true crime podcasts that took off.
Even before that, there's like 2 cable channels dedicated to true crime documentaries, like 24/7.
I'm going more recent and relevant. That's all.
I have literally never heard of true crime podcast, but I have seen many a true crime documentary on TV.
Serial is one, right?
I've never heard that.
Really? That was like the huge one.
No, I've heard of it. I'm saying I've never listened to it.
Oh, okay, sure.
I know they exist. I'm aware.
Sorry, I thought you said you'd never heard of them.
No, I'm aware of their existence and how they work. I've just never listened to one. For whatever reason, I don't know. But like, and he tries to phone Nancy after this when she's in bed, and of course, while he's been away during this day, there was an incident where Brian pulled a little mini Michael Myers and just disappeared, and like Nancy's running around like, Brian, X to Brian, and asked the neighbor, did you see him? And she eventually finds him in just the local park. It's on the same street. It's not like it's miles away. It's just down the road.
Yeah, no, he hasn't gone that far.
But he's in the park and he's just staring. And at first I thought, is he just staring at his space? This feels almost a little bit too cheesy. And then the camera cuts to what he's looking at, and it's a little girl swinging in the swing. And I thought, oh dear.
Yeah. And Nancy's like, just go over and play with her. You're allowed to do that. And the mother's immediately like, right, come on, off you go.
Yeah, we're leaving. Yeah, the mother clearly knows enough about recent events to be like, nope, I don't want that kid going near mine.
Even if not, he has just been staring there for presumably a significant amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the show's super get into this yet, and I don't think there's a ton of this in this scene, but I do think there's maybe a hint of the idea of like the rest of society not actually like, you know, the idea of just being scared of someone because they're different and not actually trying to like help
Yeah.
them and, you know, make them more part of the world, is part of the
Yeah.
problem. You know, the fear of
No, it's
mental
true.
illness and so on.
I mean, everything that you know our team are doing are learning about them, but they're not helping them. Which is the key difference I think between the therapist and his training
Oh, absolutely,
versus
yeah.
Bill.
And
We
maybe,
did brush over.
and,
Sorry, Karen.
and just maybe having that character, that therapist, be a part of the plot now is a way to start to introduce the idea of helping people at an earlier stage to stop them from becoming anything like this. The idea
Yeah,
that we can integrate them into society and stop them becoming, say, mass murderers, just to make it topical for recent years,
yeah,
like something like that.
yeah. We brushed over some when Bill's telling his story. He talks about the backgrounds they often have, and
Yes, yes.
the director. Obviously, I mentioned how he likes to be called the judge because he was a judge, and he talks about how he saw so many people like this, and he was like, oh, when they were young, when you could see it in the eyes, he just wanted to lock them away forever just to be safe. And Bill is like, oh shit.
Yeah, I mean he's just got this blank stare because as soon as he says this, he's clearly thinking about his own son, and he
Yeah,
has that feeling about his own son, and it's hurting him to hear someone else kind of corroborate this. And
yeah.
you know, so it hurts him, and he phones. This is when he phones Wendy. Wendy tells him about the incident, and she's like, she wants to tell him, but it's like, yep, you can't do it. I know you need to go work this case in Atlanta.
This is still Nancy.
Bill Nancy, sorry. Clearly, I'm just mixing names up here. But you know, phones Nancy, and she's just in bed. She kind of says this half asleep, and is just, you know, not like livid at him, but clearly still just an underlying annoyance because
Yeah, it's
he
like, oh,
can't
he's
do anything about
fine
it.
now.
Yeah, because she says, you know, I hate doing this alone. And he's like, you're not alone, and that's kind of the end of the call. And she doesn't
Yeah,
really respond to it.
no.
So, but he goes back to the bar where everyone else is, and you know they want more stories. They want to hear about Manson, and he just, you know, oh well, in that case, make it a double, and he just, you know, he immediately goes back into like social Bill mode,
Yeah,
to do his
he's
job.
very good at compartmentalizing.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I'll get there.
yes. So, and then of course he rejoins Holden in that come the Monday after the fact, but that this fear he has that his son might be becoming a serial killer, I think it's something that always had the potential to be the cheesiest element of the show because it feels like so. Of course, one of the characters we have happens to have someone in their family who could be this, but
Yeah,
it's been handled fairly well to the point where little moments like this, where the judge says that and says, "Oh, I wish I could just lock them up from that age," because you can
it's
tell.
got weight to it rather than being cheesy.
Yeah. Because most of this is like, sure, we're interested to an extent if he actually has a serial killer. We're interested to an extent how Nancy feels about it. But ultimately, what makes this work for us, the audience, is that it's about Bill's fear, and we're along this ride with Bill,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
that's what we feel from it. So, really effective in that sense. Going over to actual Wendy, not Nancy Wendy. Doesn't have a ton of stuff personal life wise. I mean, she has a little bit with a girlfriend after she goes in the interview because they're going to Atlanta, because Holden and Bill are going to the Atlanta case. Wendy and Greg go to the killer they're going to see, and it was this gay killer who attacked other gay men, and they only have one confirmed kill. They have the last kill, which was kind of different from the rest, but he's been heavily suspected of being the killer, this bagman killer who like disfigured and like cut up bodies,
Dismembered them, put them
yeah,
in bags, and disposed of them all in rivers and stuff separately.
yeah, and they were all quote unquote leather men.
Yeah.
Which I assume you'll conjure an image in your head. Think of a gay club and think of people in leather. That's what we're talking about. I don't know if that's the actual term people use these days, but that's what they were calling them.
I buy that. That's what they were calling them then.
Yeah, and you know, the great this interview, and again, he's very different to a lot of the subjects we've had before. He's actually very forthcoming. To begin with, he's quite happily, casually talking. There is some enjoyment though, because he's clearly flirting with Greg, mainly just to make Greg uncomfortable. He keeps like giving him these little glances, like, "Oh, do you watch porn, or do you, you know?"
Yeah.
He's like, "You know what it's like, Greg, don't you?" "Yeah, you get me." You know, just little things like that.
Yeah.
And Greg's feeling very comfortable.
No, it's interesting that he very strongly denies being connected to the other six, even in this here, where he said, it's just convenient for them to place that on me because I fit the profile essentially.
Yeah, because he points out it actually kind of nicely relates to the Atlanta murders a little bit when he says that no, the killer kind of has to be gay because they would have seen a straight person coming. Like, because one of the things that like one of the theories is, it could be like an angry straight man, like who's like, either really religious and extremist or whatever, who's going after gay people. But the way he says it, no, like they would always know they can tell, they can, to use a silly term here, but they've got gaydar, right? They can tell this is a straight person coming at them, and it kind of ties into the whole idea of how the perpetrator in Atlanta has to be black because he's going unnoticed in all these black neighborhoods. So it kind of tied in thematically a little bit in that sense.
I thought it was interesting. Once again, Wendy's the one getting the interview tied heavily to sexuality.
Yeah, again, tying into like what she's going through in her life, or just her general life experience. But also on top of that, we have this thing where she does get him to talk a little bit theoretically about what the killer might be doing, which is how to get some information. But as soon as it becomes like, oh, how could he have done it? What would he do? What's his methods? He's just like, you'd have to ask him, and he just calls for the guard and he leaves. He just completely shuts up.
It's really casual.
Yeah. That's just naturally the end of the conversation. But
and it's hard to say whether or not he doesn't want to say anything because he's afraid of incriminating himself, or if he's just he's sick of being asked about this theoretically other killer, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, he's just sick of being asked about that all the time instead of about himself.
Yeah, to go back to another point I made though, I like there's a little detail here where he mentions that they can't be seen as like going after one of their own. So there's an idea that the gay community would rather it be a straight person. That's why that theory kind of exists, is they don't want to be seen that way. And so like again, it's interesting that both Wendy's interviews have been kind of tied very heavily to sexuality, and in both cases were specifically homosexuality.
Yes, and it's not like it's never been a thing before, but I feel like hers have had a lot bigger focus on it.
Yeah, I think that's just a smart ploy by the writers just to tie it in more to the characters that are in the conversation.
There was a point as well. I don't know if I'm just imagining it, but when he was talking about how they always see they'll see a straight person coming, he gives her a glance like he knows.
No, I saw that too. I think you're right. I think he can tell.
Because there's no reaction, there's no follow up to it, but he just has a glance when he says that, and I'm like, he has at least a suspicion. I think
it's almost considerate. He doesn't just say it in a weird way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But I think he knows that Greg's straight. I think he's just doing it to.
Oh, he definitely knows that.
Yeah, he's just messing with him. That's all that is. He knows he's making him uncomfortable. He's just doing it for that reason. So no, it's a solid interview. Not one of the show's highlights. The show's had so many great interviews at this point that like
this is an average interview, I'd say.
But that kind of beats up Wendy a little bit because she's sitting there kind of, because it's a really funny scene and our girlfriend's doing one of those quizzes. She's asking to answer the questions, and the one she's asking is like, how often do you get wrapped up in what you're doing and not pay attention to anyone else? And she gives her the 4 options and looks up at her, and she's just not listening to her at all.
Yeah.
So that's a fun little joke.
Can answer that one for you.
Yeah. But she's like, no, tell me what you're looking at, and she's like, no, I shouldn't. He's like, no, go on, tell me what's on your mind. And she's like, well, I got him speaking quite easily early on, but then he just kind of like tightened it up immediately and left
when it got to the things that he actually wanted to ask.
Yeah, that she wanted to ask.
Yeah.
And she suggests that maybe you were rope-a-doped, meaning that he gave you all your wins at the start, so he could very easily win the conversation later on. Because if you don't know what a rope-a-dope is, it's basically just letting the opponent in boxing like tire himself out by punching you a lot, just taking the hits, and then you can just come back and wallop him fairly easily at the end.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I'm not someone who's into boxing. I'm just relatively aware of this technique. Yeah. But yeah, so I just kind of leaves it there, and sort of. But I think it's the idea that she's not great at this shit. I mean, she's better than Greg is by a long shot, but she's not holding. Low bar. But she's not holding yet, and I think she's. No, she's getting there.
I think she's closer to Bill's level. Bill has a bit more experience now, though. But I think Bill would struggle without holding there. Not struggle like Greg does, but just struggle to get the same amount of information.
Oh yeah, not shit himself like Greg. Just not get the cooperation in the same way. It's like she said, you can't be great at everything the first time you try it. Like take a few practice runs, get better at it.
Yeah, don't jump straight to your Manson, is what she's saying.
Yeah, and I feel like we'll definitely see more of this, because if they're going to be in Atlanta for another couple of weeks, say, depending how long this story lasts, I feel like we're going to get at least one more episode with them going to interview someone.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't be surprised if the Atlanta stuff at this stage lasts the rest of the season.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me.
my only concern going forward with that being the case is they might spend quite a lot of time in Atlanta, and
Hmm.
what is Wendy going to be doing? That will feel important, not just a distraction from Atlanta, but give her enough to do.
Well, I think that's an easy answer, actually. I feel like they've already done that. They've set up her own plot of her becoming a better interviewer for the killers. I don't think, at this point, I expected to cut to her doing her own interview stuff. And
Fair enough. I just they've got to do it in a way where it doesn't feel too separate. I think as we get further into Atlanta and we're like, okay, we're really invested in that. I think there's a fine line between doing it where it doesn't just feel like oh, we're just cut into the Wendy plot now. I feel like it still has to be quite relevant on some level.
do you think this one wasn't relevant?
No, I think this one was still because of the themes of the interview. We talked about how it was similar to what was going on in Atlanta with the way they kind of blended in.
The way they look for victims.
Yeah,
I mean, I think at this point she's a prominent enough character that I'm okay to let her do her own thing if that's what we're doing. But I feel like it probably will at least thematically tie in via the subjects and what they're talking about. Maybe she'll even get a moment of inspiration and phone Holden and say, "Hey, what about this? Try this thing because this
could be.
this dude just said that." Um, I could see something like that. But speaking of Atlanta, obviously Holden goes down, and unlike before when the building was empty, it's now bustling with police officers and
It
various
is.
various folk. And they've just gotten a recording, a phone call came in from what sounds like a similar person, by the sounds of it, to the previous ransom demand. But Holden is not convinced that if this was the real person, it would go to the press, not the police. It doesn't make
Yeah,
sense after 18 victims to do it now.
because it's someone claiming to be from the clan,
Yeah,
and that's why they're doing it. And he's just like, nah, it's bullshit. And the cop there, deputy, whoever he is like, sure, all right, okay.
yeah.
We've been up on this, since midnight, listening to it over and over. You've heard it once, and you think you've cracked it.
Yeah, and to be fair, all he really says is that it's not the guy. You're not going to find anything where he's telling you the body is, because that's the information. Is the guy says you'll find a body here. So they spend all night looking for this body, and there's
Yeah,
nothing.
I can see the Atlanta cops point though, where it's like, hey, look, we've got no other leads, so
Yeah, yeah,
we might as well use this. And Holden's still just like, you're wasting your time.
yeah. That said, though, when they do eventually listen to Holden, because by this time Bill gets back, and obviously Jim's around as well. Jim's helping out. By the time he gets in, and they actually listen to what they have to say, what their plan should be, their methods get results relatively quickly because they bring up the whole logic of no, we know from various killers we've interviewed that they go back to the crime scenes or back to where they've buried bodies, back to those places because they're kind of sacred, because they want to like relive the experience, they want to get off on it, kind of thing. And sure enough, they go back. They canvass a lot of the same areas they've already canvassed. They go around interviewing people they've already interviewed, although more than that later.
Mm.
They find bodies. They find 3 bodies. Well, find 2. There was one originally found. That's why it's an area of interest already. And they find 2 more bodies here. One that they get a call for, and they go, and then they find another one while they're there. Like there's literally a second body found. Well,
Yeah,
all the FBI dudes are already there. So
yeah, because they've roped in people from the local academy, for the police. Just got everyone in. Like, right, anyone we can use as a body that's competent enough, get them on it.
yeah, got Mahoney and Tackleberry and all those guys.
Yeah, you can think of any more, could you?
Winslow's the noise guy. I'm surprised you got that reference. I didn't think you'd seen Police Academy.
Well, I haven't. I've just seen little bits and enough to know. I knew exactly where you were going.
Oh dear. Um, so they find some like porn magazines nearby and all sorts, and they're obviously going to get fingerprints off that. They find matches to this guy, and he's white. So Holden immediately goes, "I don't think it's him. I think the fact that he's there is a coincidence. He's not a guy." This is where I side more with everyone else in the room. Though I'm like, well, no, you should still rule this guy out though because he's at a place where 3 bodies were found. Let's look into him.
Yeah, I mean, again, Bill, I think, is the level-headed one here, where he's like, no, we should bring him in, and even if just to rule him out, we still need to go through the
Yeah.
process. And
Whereas the police chief's
it's
no, this is him. This must be the guy.
do you know what this is when the body was found and they came to Bill's house and all right, we need your wife's shoes to rule her out.
Mm.
This is all this is as far as Bill's concerned. It's like, right, okay, well, he was there. we know that. Let's bring him so we can rule him
But
out.
he's actually kind of wrong, because them bringing someone in gets a media frenzy, as we see. Like, that's kind of what happens, is that it becomes a big deal.
Yeah.
So before we get into that stuff, though, let's just rewind a little bit, because there's a scene where, like, before they get the call, Bill's with Jim and they're canvassing and going around
One of the
asking.
places I think the last kid was kidnapped from.
I don't know if it was the last kid, but it was one of the kids. Yeah, one of the kids
Yeah.
were kidnapped from this area, and they're going around, and to their surprise, there's an old woman. They're talking to this old woman out on the porch at first, and they're asking these questions. Oh yeah, I'm out here if it's if it's warm. So during the summer, because that's why I don't think it was the last kid, because she said it was like, because she said I was out there every day during the summer, so I see everything. And she just casually mentions, "This is the first day I've been interviewed. No police have talked to me," and Bill's like, "That's the third person we've spoken to that like hasn't already been interviewed by the police. What the hell's happening here? Like, why?"
Yeah, in like a a 1 block radius of where
Yeah.
they went missing from. This is like, oh, this is the first thing they should have been doing that day.
Yeah, and they go to this other house where the one witness says that she saw the missing boy go to this door. So they go to this house, and it's because one of his friends lives here, and his friend wasn't in that day, so he never met him. He just left. But he asked, they asked this kid, and the kid sort of plays with his FBI badge, and they're getting some information of him.
Where would he go? And he mentions another friend who has also been taken.
Yeah, and is older as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Like 12 or 14 or whatever it was.
So, and it's like, wait, so we have a connection between two victims, and the police department here don't know about it, and the only reason why they don't know about it is because they didn't bother interviewing any of these people. They didn't do the legwork.
And like a really cursory interview of the area.
Yeah, this is not that in depth. This is like question 2 of like their interview.
It's like, oh hey, have you seen this kid? Oh yeah, sure, that's my son's friend. He was here all the time before he went missing. Yeah, I know. What do you want to know?
Yeah,
that's all it would have taken.
And this is the other thing. They're all very helpful because they all want the case to be solved. They're all more than happy to give the information.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No one's like putting up a fight. No one's saying, "Oh, I need a lawyer with me," or "I need a warrant." You assholes. Like, they're all like, "Yeah, I'll give you the information. What do you want to know?"
Yeah, exactly.
So I hope that's a detail that's not glossed over. I hope there's some repercussions.
Some police ineptitude to be dealt with.
Yes. I kind of want Bill to get angry at the chief and like kind of go off on him for this, because I feel like, unlike Holden, this is something that Bill can justifiably get angry at and like
you're not doing your job.
Yeah. You can chew him out for this and feel justified completely in doing it. So
definitely.
So there's a debate about going after this guy, and they all kind of agree that they should, except Holden. So Holden's like, "Okay, you've outvoted me. Let's do it." And they need warrants though, because they're worried that if they just watch him, he'll realize he's being watched and like destroy evidence. They want to like catch him off guard. So they go to the district attorney, who's at a fancy gala thing. They're raising money for some such. It's like his wife's show, and they're distressing all the rich people going in because the concierge is like, "Can you hide in this room here over the service room?"
Do you know what I thought at first when he goes, "Can you just go in there?" I thought it was going to be like a tiny little cupboard, and it's not. It's a side room with all food and stuff. It's a waiting area.
Oh yeah, Bill made me hungry because Bill just happily picks up some dessert and starts eating the dessert to his heart's content.
It wouldn't have been what I would have gone for myself, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Hey, I mean, I don't know what the options were, but I would have eaten what he was eating.
I wouldn't if it was I wouldn't have gone for any of the desserts. If there was something less desserty, I'd have gone for anything there.
Oh, sure. That's because you don't have a sweet tooth like everyone else on the planet. So they get this guy, and he's very reluctant at first. He doesn't think they have enough evidence. He thinks there's no witnesses or anything like that. He doesn't want to, because he wants to to his constituents, he wants to appear that he's not invading their privacy. He wants to appear to be upholding that.
He has a fair point, I think, here, because it's like all you've got is that this guy was at the same area at some point in time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong to say, okay, you're kind of reaching here a little bit. I mean, admittedly, it's all they've got to go on. So, of course, they're doing their job following up on it.
Yeah, it's kind of this thing where I think Bill's right to want to rule him out, but then, of course, the fallout from this is that, the deputy mayor, whoever comes in again at the end, and he's like, "Hey, if this turns out not to be the guy, this will be seen as a public screw-up again." And it's like, it shouldn't be thought of that way. Although I did laugh at the cut because the deputy district attorney says, "Okay, I'll give you the warrants, but no press. You need to promise me." And Bill's like, "We promise." Cut to just all the sirens and the cars all around the house and just the noise.
Real subtle.
That was really funny to me. I was really into that. So the final shot is kind of deputy mayor goes out to talk to the press who have just rolled up, and
Yeah,
Holden's
just
looking
Holden
down.
wants to go out and just
Yeah,
say, one line and then leave it, but he's like, no, no, let me handle this.
yeah, Holden's looking down through the blinds, and we just kind of end in a kind of somber, like, is this going to go nowhere? Are they going to get chewed out for this? Like, it ends in kind of a somber note. With is this the guy? Because they want to leave him sweating, because they think the best tactic here is to make him worry longer by leaving him in the room.
Yeah.
But they're like the deputy mayor and that are like desperate to just no, go in there and talk to him, get this done as quick as possible. But that's not necessarily the right tactic. There's no patience on their part.
Oh, there's not. No.
And the irony of that, of course, is that the reason why this is taking so long in the first place is because they refused to accept how serious it was until now. So there is an irony there to their own mistakes.
It's that they kind of put it off as long as they possibly could, and then obviously it got to a point where they were forced to, publicly admit what was going on.
Yeah.
And then, okay, once we've hit that point, we need this done as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So that is the end of the episode. That's how it wraps up. And we have 3 left? Yeah, it was episode 6. We got 7, 8, and 9 to go.
Yeah.
So no, solid episode. I think it's up there with one of the season's best, mainly because of the personal story for Bill. I think is really starting to hit some high notes for me.
I agree with that.
And then of course you have the interviews, of course, and everything else that's going on. So, but here we are. So let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and everything we do here, all the stuff, all the content we put out and want to keep it all coming, you can do that by going over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv and supporting us for as little as $1 per month. Get some bonuses, some early stuff, all that kind of thing. But mostly just, support us and keep the content coming. Otherwise, though, check out other shows we've got coming out, other reviews we're doing right now. We've got a couple of shows from HBO being reviewed. Our Boys and the Righteous Gemstones. Me and Connor are still working through various things from Netflix and Amazon that have been kind of lingering for a while because they've been hard to fit in. But we've got Too Old to Die Young still with a few episodes left. We just recently started 3% Season 3, so that's ongoing. I'm doing Glow Season 3 on my own. A lot of TV content happening right now. More coming soon. So go check it all out. But anyways, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?